Let me just explain what's happening here today. I'm going to address this. This will be first to the chief and Ron and Officer Freedy. We have had on the island quite a few questions asked to us of what the status is, how things are going with that road work, emergency vehicle access, etc. And I thought it's best if you give us a full report on where we are with everything, time-wise, etc., light, traffic light monitoring, etc. And then afterwards, if we have any questions, you can all one at a time raise your hand and we'll recognize you. But I thought first, rather than me giving the report every week, I'd like it to be heard from you because you're in the front line. And I really appreciate, because you guys have had your hands full with the shooting yesterday at the mall. So to do this and take your time out, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. The people that are on this call are the board of directors of Williams Island, the presidents of Williams Island, and a number of the people that are employed on the island, like Dan McConnell, who heads up security, et cetera. So I thought it would be best if they hear it all from you. So with that, Ron, I'll leave it over to you now. This is Ron Watson, the city manager, and that's Brian Pegues, the chief of police, and Officer Frieda, who really does run the police department, but we don't let him, we just let him, Officer Chief think he does. Anyway, Ron, go ahead.
Is he on mute?
Ron, we don't hear you.
See me? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, now we hear you perfectly.
This is the wrong chat. There we go.
Great.
Hello,
Can you hear us?
Oh, you got it.
Yep, perfectly.
So
I can't hear them.
the green thing keeps popping up.
It should
Yeah,
be working. Can you hear us now?
Yes, perfect.
All right, welcome back.
Gotcha.
All right, Commissioner Shelley, thank you very much for hosting this and allowing myself, Brian Pegues, the chief, and Mark Frieda, our traffic sergeant, for coming and addressing you. I really wish I could tell you I have fantastic news that we're going to be finished next week, but truthfully, that is not the case.
Wait, I'm sorry, Brian, Ron, before I start, because we do have this is an official meeting, I just have to have a motion that this has been noticed, it's been properly noticed, and we do have a quorum. So I appreciate
I
it.
so move.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm sorry, Ron, go ahead, please.
No problem. So what I started to say was, as you know, in Williams Island, there was a sewer project that was long being planned for by the county to replace some aging sewer lines that service Peninsula and Williams Island in particular. They were scheduled to be replaced a few years from now, but because there was several sewer line breaks, they felt the need to push the project up, the timeline up, and that's why it started a little earlier than we anticipated. The projects, which started about 3 weeks ago, we knew it was going to be difficult because, unfortunately, your traffic or the way you get in and out of Williams Island is very limited. Any plans and detours that were put in place were reviewed by the county, as well as our police department, to do so that we did the best that we could as to not have major traffic and traffic jams. One of the things that I did anticipate was that in the first couple of weeks, there would be a lot of pain because people don't usually react well to detours, and it takes them a little while to get used to them. However, a lot of the input or a lot of the things we heard from the community and actually from our police department was the need to work on changing the timing of the lights, the signals onto Biscayne Boulevard. I'm happy to report, and I'll let the police department talk a little bit about that in a minute, as to emergency services response and to actual traffic direction. If I could, just I'd like to talk about the construction phase of what's going on.
Thank you.
Right now, they're coming up 183rd Street. They're about halfway down the street at this point. I know a lot of people are confused with the is gonna be 320 days to the completion of the project. For our main concern for traffic for Williams Island and the peninsula is to get off 183rd Street. Once we're off 183rd Street, it'll be 10 times better for traffic. It first started with the improvement of going to, instead of backfilling trenching, open trenching, replacing the sewer line. It was our recommendation from our Public Works Department that they decided that flowable fill or concrete would be used instead of backfilling the trenches, compacting it, then going over it and then temporary sealing it for final asphalt. By using the flowable fill, it's moving the job a lot faster than we anticipated. Normally, we wouldn't be as far as we were if we were doing the old method. I would like to say that everything has been perfect. We've hit a few little snags in the way. There was some contaminated fill that had to be taken out where some trenching was done, and that's being done with the county approval. And in South Florida, I have found if you can't always count on plans to show when things are actually in the ground. So they found a few things in the ground that we didn't anticipate, not unexpected in a project like this. So they're engineering around it, but the positive thing is they are well ahead of the schedule where they thought they would be. Hopefully in 4 to 6 weeks, we will be off of 183rd Street. And then, like I said, will make a major difference for the traffic because we'll be able to fully open 183rd Street down to Biscayne Boulevard. At this time, I'm going to ask the police department just to talk about some of the concerns that we've heard about access for police and fire department for ambulance services.
Thank you. Ron, Chief, before you do, Ron, one quick question. The 300 and some odd day project, that's obviously including a lot of other areas other than 183rd.
Yes.
So what you're saying is we should be, from what I'm hearing, 183rd should be open eastbound and westbound within 4 to 5, 6 weeks the most?
Let's say 8 weeks, the worst case scenario.
Okay.
I think it would be sooner than that, the way we're going.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioner Shelley. Thank you for having me. And everybody that's on the call, my name is Brian Pegues. This is Sergeant Mark Frieder, who oversees our traffic unit. And we're here to answer any of your questions. But I know some of the concerns, and I can imagine when this project started, the disruption to everybody's lives and the community, I'm sure was nothing short of just terrible. But I want to assure you that it behooves us, and we take this very seriously. We've been planning for this, especially for emergency calls for service. Sergeant Frieder, who's going to get into it, has been working every single day with the project team out there. And I can assure you that you have a tremendous project team that is moving exceptionally fast. And I know we try to give you this 8-week worst case scenario, but the progress that we're making, I think it's going to be much sooner than that. And we're going to definitely have some relief. But let me tell you about just to go over some metrics for you real quick about calls for services. So since the project started on the 19th of April, we've had 111 total calls for service along the 183rd Street corridor. That encompasses Fresh Market, all of the condominiums to include Williams Island. And 52 of those calls have been an emergency call, whether it's a medical call, some type of fire call, of those. And we have not had any disruption to service. Fire rescue has been able to get through. Sergeant Frieder, who's there during the day, is monitoring the radio. So when we have emergency calls, we know that we have pathways for them to get in. Our officers are familiar with different routes and how to get in to make sure that we respond accordingly into the communities. So we're monitoring the calls, the stats that we've had over there. We're working with our fire partners as well. They're aware of the peak times and what they need to do to get in there. And, you know, there's also other things too. If there's a critical incident where somebody has to be evacuated, fire rescue can land in the Williams Island complex. We have before if they had to get a helicopter in there, but they've been able to get their trucks and ambulances through the area as quickly as possible. We worked initially with Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. I know the first couple of days it was very, like the manager said, it was very, very confusing. When you have a new pattern for traffic, it takes a couple days for people to get used to it. We worked with Miami-Dade Traffic Control. Both the manager and I drive through the area every single day. They're remote controlling the lights, but there's a couple factors that come into play. Since the governor issued his emergency order, and really in the past couple of weeks, our traffic here, we're kind of used to pre-COVID traffic that we've had here. We've gotten back to normal. Traffic patterns, especially with the influx of people coming in from vacationing, with people from the winter, has gotten back to normal. And we have also additional construction that's going on Biscayne Boulevard, where FPNL is replacing light poles at peak times. It's also affecting some of the flow that's out there. But you know, we're doing what we can. We've had officers that are controlling intersections, and we're monitoring the lights. And I'll let Sergeant Frieder just go into some of the details about the project, the team that he's working with. He's embedded with the team every single day as they're moving. So in case there's any issues, we're in real time, either moving traffic, barricades, making sure that emergency personnel have the access to get in there. So Mark, if you want to address some of the issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Mark Frieder. I've been with the city for approximately 23 and a half years. And prior to coming to Aventura, I have a background in construction and project management, and I have continued to work outside of work as a state licensed inspector. I tell you that so that you understand that I'm not only a traffic cop, but I'm also heavily involved in the construction industry, and I understand what needs to be done to move this project along as effectively and as quickly as we possibly can, so we get it done one time, we get it done the correct way, and we get it done as quickly as possible. When we first began this project, I met with the Miami-Dade County traffic engineer that designed the movement of traffic plans. I was able to provide them with some proactive items, information on local activity that they were not familiar with to try and resolve problems before they ever began. One of those things was the implementation of the traffic timing on multiple intersections, traffic lights changing as soon as construction began. So within the first 24 hours of this project beginning, we were already working without anybody knowing that we were doing it with Miami-Dade County Traffic Control to address Miami Gardens, 185th Street, the light by the marina, the light in front of Williams Island, to try and move traffic efficiently as a pattern or as a system, not just one intersection at a time. In the middle of that, I'm sure some of you have seen me out there in the sun. I've manually directed traffic. I've addressed it with the pickles or the electronic control systems that are actually parked on every street corner, trying to adjust and tweak. And there are people on the backside of those systems that are monitoring with a computer to see what it is that I'm doing to try and improve it so that they can replicate it without me physically having to be there. We've also positioned additional officers in the intersections of Miami Gardens and Ives Ferry Road to address what I consider to be poor driver hygiene, where people block the box, they park in the intersections, they block, do things that they shouldn't be doing. Moving beyond that, we have monitored our traffic counts and our flows daily since this project began. We've had on-site supervision with me working with the team that the chief spoke about. We have problem solved and worked around a number of items, everything from getting the concrete trucks in, the type of concrete that is also excavatable. I want folks to understand the concrete that we're speeding up the process can be dug out later. Heaven forbid we need to add something or fix something at a later date. It's not a giant mess at that point. We also have the traffic engineers, as well as the engineers that are designing this project, that are constantly meeting with us. They were on site last week. We had the opportunity to walk them through, had the opportunity to meet and review what we're doing. Also, we've had a problem with a number of folks moving our barricades at night, moving our traffic plans at night, and folks that just don't want to follow the traffic plan that's put in place, and they're creating some of the disruptions. An example was last Thursday night. You may have noticed that Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of last week, traffic into the island was moving very efficiently, very well. Thursday night, I had a tractor trailer that drove their truck head on into our traffic light pole, completely shutting down our traffic lights. And we had to make emergency measures to get the lights up and running so that rush hour traffic could actually get in to the island and other areas. We have the backup plans in place, but we've had some unexpected things like a tractor trailer hitting the lights. That's not something you can plan for. One of the other issues we have seen that's occurring is that the island is having a number of folks delivering vehicles in tractor trailers. We're having tractor trailer sized deliveries being made to the island. They're being told to park outside the island on 3rd Street. We're having to reroute those trucks or remove those trucks because they're effectively blocking that intersection or creating a traffic backlog that's backing up into the island. So if there's anything that can be done on your end to encourage these drivers to drop those vehicles and Uber to where the vehicle may be not in that intersection, it would be gratefully appreciated. I understand that I have seasonal residents that are going back and forth. I get it, and we're working to try and find a designated area for them to park tractor trailers away from your property, but that's not in the middle of our detour. Is there anything that you may want to know that I may not have covered in details? I can tell you that the contractors that I'm working with are top rate guys. They're not sitting there leaning on their shovels doing nothing. They have literally been working around the clock to keep this method moving forward. And I would challenge any other crew in the country to keep up with the breakneck speeds that we've been operating at. I mean, we literally have gone from Biscayne Boulevard to what used to be the Biscayne Institute in 11 days. And right now, we have had to slow down to deal with the contamination issues. And that's not something that the engineers or the construction folks have control over. It requires DERM permits to dispose of it. It's got to have an environmental person on site with testing equipment in order to, an environmental hygienist is the official term, that actually has to monitor the air quality and soil quantity to make sure that they're not releasing chemicals too rapidly.
I just want to add real quick, I'm sorry.
Wait, everyone, let me just say this, Brian. Everyone will have a chance to talk, but please raise your hands after they're done speaking, and I will call on you one at a time. I see you, Jack. Just give us a few minutes.
It behooves all of us, and especially us, to get this project done as quick as possible. And I want to assure everybody we're doing everything we can. And like the sergeant was speaking, anytime that there's an issue or an obstruction that comes up where it has to go through county approval, we're aware of it. The city manager and I are contacting people or Joe Kroll to make sure that any of these obstructions are dealt with and are overcome immediately. We understand how traffic is an issue, but I want to assure everybody, and listen, we want to hear your suggestions. We want to take your questions, and we want to make sure that you understand that we want to get this done as quick as possible. If we can get it done yesterday, that's what we want to do. So that's what we're here for. If anybody has any questions?
Okay, first question, Richard Burton.
Yeah, a quick one. Is there any method, I know there are, that could hold lights extra? For example, we need the light on Biscayne Boulevard quadrupled in its time because we're having the backup of people. So we know that everyone is coming out on 183rd Street, but it's backing up now almost to the traffic light around the corner.
The detour is not designed to have them exit through 183rd Street. It's designed to have them exit through 185th and 186th. And the answer to your question is, after the first 24 hours, that following morning, the new timing cycles went into place. We have live monitoring by Miami-Dade County Traffic Engineering occurring on a daily basis, and they're adjusting with their technicians by looking at cameras to figure out whether they want longer or shorter times. But understand that it's not just Biscayne Boulevard. We've got Dixie Highway, Miami Gardens, Ives Dairy Road, and trains that all affect this process.
Okay, so you're suggesting people go past the two plaza buildings where the City National Bank is to get out?
What I recommend is that they take what we all know locally as the back way to go up to 185th Street. And if 185th Street appears to be backed up at the intersection where the Chabad Temple is or the marina is, to make the right and go up to 186th and make a left to go to Biscayne. Both of those lights have been retimed to allow as much time westbound as possible to allow folks to exit the city.
Okay, Jack. You're muted, Jack. Jack, you're muted. Jack, you're muted. Jack, we don't hear you. All right, John, in the meantime,
Yes. All right, can you hear me now?
now I hear you.
Okay. I thought the mass exodus coming from the peninsula and Williams Island are the morning hours and the evening, maybe a 2-hour run from 4 to 6 or from 8 to 10. My thought was that a lot of times, even though it backs up, people coming out of the Walgreens, both from the pharmacy end and the store end, get block of traffic, and it makes it even worse. My suggestion would be if we could block those two exits off just for those couple hours and have them go over the next street back up, it would probably alleviate a lot of the congestion.
Thank you, Jack. Okay, John Fels?
Yeah, again, as Bob said, we very much appreciate you gentlemen updating us, and we're all very proud of the Aventura police force that we have in place. I understand the inconvenience, and a lot of us are uncomfortable, and for the next month or two, we're just going to have to live with it. But in Williams Island, we have a mature population, and unfortunately, there will be episodes that are life-threatening. And I understand emergency vehicles can gain access to the property. The concern we have is during the hours that Jack Smith just referred to, how are those same emergency vehicles going to transport someone who may be critically ill to a local hospital?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch this.
My name is
Oh,
John Bell.
John Campbell's.
Mr. Fels, let me answer your question with 3 different scenarios. First of all, I'm aware of the fact that the island has AMR with a paramedic on the property at all times. Second of all, there is no obstruction to getting in a fire rescue truck. Either eastbound on 183rd Street, it is a straight shot from Biscayne Boulevard, as it normally is, or through the back way. So entrance into the property has not been restricted at this point.
Okay.
Originally, when we were going from Biscayne Boulevard to 27th Avenue, the westbound side of 183rd Street was restricted coming out and placed into a detour status. We've cleared that hurdle. So the eastbound and the southbound entrances into your property are not restricted, nor have they ever been. So the answer to your question is, driving wise, they can do. Number 2, whenever we have a road closure, my dispatchers are advised of this information real time. That's why I'm out in the field in addition to the construction responsibilities. And they are able to provide that to Miami-Dade Fire Rescue folks that our own 911 dispatch is dispatching. They're getting that information real time if there's an issue. Today, we had a fire rescue truck come down the road. I knew it was coming. I made sure that all of the bulldozers that were making deliveries were not on the road, they were making it through. So it's a combination of layers that are going there to make sure that we don't have a failure. Number 1 is on-site personnel seeing real world conditions. Number 2 is dispatchers being updated real time. Number 3, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue personnel has been made aware at their station, the captain specifically, that there is road construction, the amount of time it should take, and the fact that they can approach either by air, by marine, or by land. So you've got 3 venues as it normally is.
Something real quick. If I could just add something real quick, I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but we have here in Aventura, we have our own 911 center. And we are one of only a handful of 911 centers that we actually dispatch for Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. So when there's a fire rescue call, we get it, we dispatch the fire. We're able to put in the pertinent information that they need. Obviously, if there's traffic obstructions or there's different things. In addition, like the sergeant has said, we hear over the radio, we know if there's, depending on the level of priority, if there's a significant incident, our officers are going to go and assist in getting fire trucks through if we have to, or any other, if there's a, God forbid, if there's a fire in one of the, our officers are well aware of how to get in and out, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that there is no lack of coverage of service in the area.
In addition,
And also, and just to add to that, John, if you recall, we have air rescue capability within the city that, God forbid, we couldn't get through the traffic. They can have a helicopter land on in Williams Island and get them right over to Aventura Hospital on that landing pad within minutes.
Where
It's happened in the
where is that
past.
landing pad?
I'm sorry?
Where is that landing pad?
you have a soccer field on the,
Let Dan answer it.
I can just tell you, we've in the past, we've had some trauma injuries here, and they did land at the playground next door. Not our playground, but the playground next door, when we've had trauma injuries in the past. If you
Okay, Erwin?
Okay, the problem isn't getting into the island, it's getting off of the island. If it's between 4 and 6 o'clock, the traffic is backed up to the tennis courts, trying to get off of the island. Coming in is fine, getting off.
coming off of the island, the method for them to get off the property is to go onto the detour on 185th and then 186th. 185th has a striped area in the middle that they can drive down up until they get to the palm trees. It is a 2-lane road on the right side, and it has additional lanes on the other side. And I have officers that have dispatched to all medical calls that you have seen many times on the island. Those officers are capable of doing whatever is necessary to moving the traffic out of the way. And that is also why we have Miami-Dade County phone number for the dispatchers to be able to access in the event that they need to tell Miami-Dade County to run all the lights westbound, should the need be there to be able to get the traffic out of the area to allow rescue to go through. But Miami-Dade County Fire Rescue makes a determination through the triage process when they arrive on scene, what is critical or what can be a normal driving speed in their fire rescue truck. Based on that triage process, they'll decide whether air rescue is appropriate, whether ground rescue is appropriate. And I want to throw one other thing out there. In addition, just for an extra overlapping level of assistance, we also have Absolute that responds on scooters, Jeeps, and all kinds of different vehicles. That's a volunteer organization. I know I have members that live on the island, and I know that I have equipment in the shul that's on the island. So I know that we have a lot of different resources that overlap, not to mention the fact that Mr. O'Connell's security staff can redirect traffic at the various gates on the property to allow traffic in or out depending upon what we're dealing with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Dan?
Hi, good afternoon, Sergeant Frieder, Chief of Geese, City Manager Washington. Great to see you guys again. I heard you say something, Sergeant Frieder, about semi trucks and trailers. We have 3 high rises right now that are under major construction. I did take some phone calls that my officers had turned some of the trucks away. I didn't know what they were talking about and assured them we were not. Was it you guys that were turning those trucks away?
What we're trying to do is they're telling them to park outside of your property with the tractor trailer for the purposes of unloading a car. This has nothing to do with construction, it's strictly cars. So what we're asking the drivers to do is to either relocate to another area that's not in that intersection that right now is critical because of everything going on.
Agree with you. We did send a communication out to our residents last week, Monday, letting them know that we would not accept any car carriers here unless they were single car carriers, tow trucks, obviously. I know some of them are beasts. They tear up everything, the streets, the trees, the roadways. So hopefully that message came across to our residents. They've got to do it off-site. So we have communicated that to the community.
Thank you.
Okay. George Garcia?
Just real quick, Dan, if you could send that communication specifically to our managers, we can then push it out from the buildings to reinforce that.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right, I don't see any. I can't thank you enough, Ron, Brian, and I just thank you so much for taking your time to do this. It gives everyone a feeling of understanding. We all have to understand you didn't create this. Aventura didn't create this. We have to deal with it. And when I say we, the whole city. But what you guys have done is truly amazing. And I wanted the board of the presidents to hear what's going on directly. because it is terrific what you've done. And thank God that 4 or 5 weeks, hopefully it'll be over. Then we get the mess into Williams Island, but we do have the ability, once they start working in the Williams Island, that we have 2 lanes in and 2 lanes out. So it won't affect getting in and out of the island once they make that turn into our island. So I thank you again. As long as we have no more questions, I just wanted to have everyone hear this from you directly. Chief, Ron, Mr. Frieda, I just can't thank you enough. Thank you all very much for the call. And I know you guys have a lot to do on your hands right now.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you all.
And if you have any questions that somebody didn't think about, please, feel free to reach out and we'll answer them to the best of our ability.